And for anybody that's listening to the recording, the speaking parts will start a little bit later than now. But welcome to the Rotary Club of Motorcycling Rotarians. Light crowd yet tonight. Hopefully a few more join in. So we'll just chat for maybe 5 minutes and then we'll turn Sarah loose on everybody at that point in time. So
Are we gonna do the national anthem and the Pledge of Allegiance and all of that stuff?
No, all we do at the end is the five-way test as we have it. So
Oh, nice. Love it. I've been really pushing that in my club.
the five-way test or four-way test?
Four-way, I guess. Yeah, the four-way, the traditional one, but
Sarah, we're friends on Facebook, but where are you located?
oh, cool. I'm in Oregon.
Okay. I was out that way last summer.
Nice riding, huh?
Oh, it's beautiful.
Awesome.
Made it all the way up to Vancouver.
Canada or Vancouver, Washington?
Yeah, Canada.
Oh, nice. Okay, yeah. We always have to specify out here because they're pretty close.
Sarah, have you ever done dunes riding out there?
I
over
have
by the
not.
coast?
I'm not a dunes person. I've done a lot of off-road riding, but not the dunes.
I spent 3 days out there. Oh, it might have been 15 years ago even now, but I do accident reconstruction, so I was dealing with yeah, they were out there. I was working for Yamaha Corporation with their four-wheelers at the time, off-roaders, and we had a whole series of cases, about 600 of them across the country, and most of them were, hold my beer and watch this type stuff. And
Oh, yeah.
honest to God, is people were start to tip and they put their leg out to stop it. They'd bust a leg big time, shatter.
Yeah, that's all pretty much not my scene. So
yeah, but there's a lot of there's a lot of bikers out there and
yeah.
doing their things riding the dunes, and that was just crazy. It was interesting but crazy. That's the only time I've been in Oregon, so I'm looking forward to first weekend of May. So
Yeah, that's going to be fun. We're having a district expo here instead of a district conference. So it's kind of a public thing. So Jerry's going to come out and have a IFMR table at our district conference. So that should be really fun.
but that's not why I'm coming out.
I
I'm
know,
coming
it's
out
an
to ride the
excuse
day
to come out
before
and go
with Sarah. That's
Yeah.
the big goal.
Jerry, that hold my beer thing would never occur with this group.
Yeah. Well, y'all know what I'm wearing right now, right? Oh, it's underneath the leg. Sorry. I got a brace that I've been wearing for a couple months now, Sarah, since I put a motorcycle down in September.
Oh no.
So yeah,
You want to see my surgery scar?
I got a torn ligament that's hopefully going to heal by itself.
You want to see my surgery scar?
Nope.
Good.
It's just good to see you, John. Honestly, because
it's good
that
to
was
be
touch
seen.
and go there.
It really was.
John's health was touch and go there in December and January, so it's great to see him.
I wound up with 4 surgical procedures in 3 weeks.
Oh my gosh.
Wow. And I was laying in bed for 5 weeks, so I'm still learning, getting my legs back.
So I'm going ahead.
John,
Go ahead and
may
get
I
us
ask?
started here. I'm sorry.
I'm going to ask John why he was laid up. I don't know that.
Long story short, I had a small bowel obstruction. Apparently, in your small intestine, one part can actually overtake another, and that causes we'll call it discomfort. The first operation was to cut out that section. The second operation was to clean up something that burst. The third procedure was to repair another break. And the fourth procedure was to repair a bleeder in the large intestine. But other than that, I had a good time.
That's a lot.
I'm sure. Yeah. Wow.
Well, if you ever have a choice, go to Hershey Medical Center in Hershey, Pennsylvania.
Hey, Deb, I just saw your message. Deb's camera's not working for her, but hopefully she hears just fine.
Can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you. We can hear you just fine. So, did you get my
Yeah,
phone
this is
message
just,
earlier?
yeah, I did. Yeah, I did. Thank you for calling. Yeah, this is part of the course this week that on top of everything else now, my camera will not work. So I am here.
Well, we all send our love to you, okay?
Thank you.
And and I'm
Miss
leaving back again
Mr.
tomorrow night, but
Cram.
I'm leaving back again out tomorrow night to Mexico. So I'm gonna try and call you tomorrow sometime just to chat.
Okay. Okay, no,
Where are you
that's
going in
I'll be
Mexico?
home.
Where are you going in Mexico?
I am heading on another eye mission, actually the way I felt when I landed last night here, I don't sleep on planes very well at all. And I had an 8.5 hour flight from Nairobi to Amsterdam, 3 hours in Amsterdam, and an 8.5 hour flight from there to Detroit. So when I got home last night, I got home about 5. I laid down just for a minute at 5:20. I woke up at about 12:20 this morning and then went back to bed at 3 and woke up at 8:30 and I'm full to go now again. So and it was kind of there's a lot going on there in Kenya. Really successful trip. We had 2,000 patients. My skills are all back up to speed to do the eye exams, and so I will be doing those in Mexico again. But I'll be in Empalme, Mexico. Long answer to the short question. So that's
What's the name of the town?
Empalme, EMPALM. WAY, something like that. It is on the inside coast of the California Bay, right on the Bay Area there, about halfway up the bay. We fly to Phoenix Friday morning very early, and then we have about a 10 or 11 hour bus ride from Phoenix south to where we're going. So, and we have to change buses at the border. So it'll be interesting. And then the first 2 days is off and party time, and so I'll be relaxing and I should be well put together by the time I have to work. So it'll be good. So I'm going to move ahead here. Different people will be drifting in maybe yet. I'm missing a chat in my okay, that I got it. Never mind. All right. And so I'm very happy that we have Sarah Schilke with us tonight. Sarah was one of our original charter members, and after a short period of time, she decided to go with a brick and mortar club, which I think she helped start actually, a new club. Anyway, and she is the current president of her club. And she has been involved in motorcycles quite a bit. In fact, she gave us, I think, one of our first talks way back when we first got started there in 2018. And she was still with BMW at that time, I believe, at that time. But
Yep.
You saw her bio. I won't read through that. It's worth reading through if you have not read it. She's got quite an impressive background. I'll just say we've been friends. I don't know how we got first connected, probably through starting this club. We've chatted off and on a few bits here and there since. Deb is also a friend of Sarah's, I think in person somewhere along the line. It just, Deb, you want to jump in here at all? I see you take off mute.
Sure. I was introduced to Sarah by Joan Crenning. There's a moment, Sarah. Joan Crenning, because I worked on the very first oh my God, what's it called? I can in my mind I could see it and I can't think of it. But a women's event. And so the really cool thing is I have followed Sarah since then, and she does some really cool, amazing stuff. And I'm looking forward to hearing her speak tonight.
Awesome. Thank you, Deb.
And just to finish out though, like I'm really looking forward. I've ridden with most everybody in our club at one time or another. Sarah has been one that I haven't been able to yet. So first weekend of May, I'm going to go out and help her with her district. It's not a conference, but it's the, what did you call it again? I'm sorry.
Expo.
So we're going to be doing that, and we're going to get to spend a day riding together before that. So looking forward to that. With that, I will say she's one of the top who's who as far as women motorcyclists go, but just as a motorcyclist as whole and involvement in the motorcycling industry, she's a who's who regardless of sex. So it's very nice to have Sarah here tonight talking to us. She made the suggestion of Helmets 101, and then she says maybe it should be called 201, which thus it's now Helmets 101 and 201. And I give you guys Sarah.
Okay, I'll just share my screen here. Okay. Are you seeing the presentation screen?
We are.
Okay. Are you seeing the speaker screen?
The speaker screen. We just see the motorcycle helmets.
No.
And
Okay.
then the little squares for everybody's face through.
Okay, perfect. Sounds like I got it right. So yeah, so I'm going to talk about motorcycle helmets, and I know that everyone is very experienced riders. So it's been tailored to kind of a basic overview of helmets, but I do add in some more more detailed information. So feel free to pop in with questions at any time or add in insights that you might have. But basically here, let's see, why is it not? There you go. This is what I'm going to be talking to tonight. So basically just in general about helmets, the importance of them, how they're made, how they protect you, helmet standards, and what this means for motorcyclists, and then basically how to care for your helmet. So we're all familiar with the basic styles of helmets. One thing that I like to point out, people often, if I assume that most everyone on this is a street rider. So I just like to point out that the dirt or enduro helmet, some of the differences there, it has the elongated chin, which allows for more airflow. It's usually worn with goggles, and since off-road riding is very much athletic, it helps. The elongated airflow section allows for better, so the goggles don't get steamed up. And then the bill on it also helps keep brush out of your face and things like that. So it has that extended bill on it. And then the newest form of motorcycle helmet out there is the adventure helmet. And this is kind of a combination between a standard street helmet and a dirt helmet. So it's got the elongated chin bar with extra venting down there, but instead of being used with goggles, it does have the face shield, or in some cases you can take the shield off and use goggles if you choose. So it's kind of a best of both worlds type solution in the ADV helmet. I also like to point out on modular or flip up helmets, there's a couple things about these. The first is that I've heard over the years a number of people who wear open face helmets or the half helmets. They're looking to move into full face helmets because of just noise and safety. And but they feel kind of claustrophobic in a full face helmet because they're not used to it. So a modular helmet is a good way to ease that transition into a full coverage helmet. Also, I want to point out that not all modular helmets are made the same. Some of them have all the protective capabilities in the chin bar, and they're tested and certified as a full face helmet. Schuberths are like this. I think that the NeoTech is like this, but some flip up helmets are basically just a 3/4 helmet with some like protection from the elements, but that isn't designed for crash protection. So if you're interested in getting a modular helmet, you want to do a little bit of research and make sure that you're getting the variation that best meets your needs. And then, okay, so the importance of wearing a helmet is twofold. So wearing a proper helmet helps reduce the wind blast. It helps reduce noise. It creates a much more comfortable, calming environment inside, and that comfort and protection from the elements can also help minimize fatigue and just help you have a better and longer motorcycle riding experience over, the day or whatever, because comfort is very important for safety. And when we talk about protection, of course, people think that a helmet protects against getting, knocked on the head, injuring your skull somehow. But the primary function that helmets are designed for is to prevent brain injury. And I'll talk a little bit more about this as we go forward. So a helmet is generally comprised of 4 parts. So you have the outer shell, which is designed from various different materials, such as composites like fiberglass or carbon fiber, or polycarbonates, plastics. And the shell can be designed and manufactured with various types of levels of rigidity, flex, levels of quality. And so that's one thing, that's one element of the helmet that is very important. It's mostly designed to take an impact and disperse that energy across all of the helmet to minimize the energy in that one spot where the impact is taking place. Then the next layer is the EPS liner, expanded polystyrene. Styrofoam is basically a brand name of EPS. And this is the part that's the most important for protecting your brain. It's designed to basically absorb the energy of your head pushing into it in the event of an accident. And so this is very important. And you see how thick it is. That's because that enables it to have a crush zone to basically slow down the impact of your head on the inside of the helmet. Then the next layer is the comfort layer, which it makes it comfortable, but it also helps adjust the fit and keep the helmet snug so it stays in place in the event of an incident. And then the next final piece is the retention system, and that's the strap that holds it on your head and also helps hold it in place. So why, if helmets are basically made up of those 4 pieces, why are the prices so different? And that has to do with the quality of materials, the quality of manufacturing. For example, if you take a face shield, some face shields are made from taking a piece of plastic and bending it into the shape of the helmet, which can cause slight imperfections in the viewing. Whereas other ones are injection molded. So it's all the same uniform thickness throughout, and it creates an almost perfect view through the plastic. But those are different costs for manufacturing. Aerodynamics, soundproofing, the number of shell sizes that a manufacturer uses can affect how expensive or inexpensive the helmets are. And then you've got lots of other bells and whistles like the venting, the graphics, accessories, and things like that. So a more modern addition to the helmet technology is sort of this 5th level that is designed to accommodate what's called rotational acceleration. And you might have heard this in helmets such as 6D, Bell Flex, the MIPS helmets. MIPS was the first technology in this realm, and it stands for Multi-Directional Impact Protection System. And so basically, the researchers noticed that with all of the advancements in helmet construction, they're still seeing concussions happening. And so they were trying to figure out why this was going on. And even in some lower speed accidents, like more severe concussions were happening. So in this research, they found a lot of incidents of this through sports research, where the head isn't just hitting the ground in one spot, but because the rider is moving, there's also force behind the impact. And in many cases, the head will actually rotate slightly as it's impacting, and this is causing stress on the brain and the brainstem. And so these new technologies are looking at ways to accommodate that twist and basically enable the helmet to absorb some of that too, again, to minimize the concussion or the pressure of the brain inside the skull. There's a couple ways that they do these. One, the MIPS version was with kind of a dual liner system. So they had 2 levels of the EPS that could shift and rotate. So in order to accommodate that, the Bell helmets use an elastomer system. So it's similar to the 2, except instead of sliding around between the 2 of them, they've got these elastomers that are rubber and kind of just absorb it and allow some level of movement. So there's some different methods there. We're seeing it mostly in dirt helmets and kids helmets right now, but this is definitely an up and coming technology, and we're seeing more and more of it as we go on. If you'd like to learn more about this, you can scan this QR code on the screen, and that will take you to an article about all of the rotational force research that's going on in the helmets that are being developed. So you can see there are lots and lots of options to consider when you're selecting a helmet, but there's one option that you want to avoid at all costs, and that is what we call novelty headwear. So it might look like a motorcycle helmet, but it's not certified, it's not protective, and it's classified as a fashion accessory or a costume. So what is the difference between this and the half shell helmet that you saw earlier? A couple of differences. One, it won't come with a certification on it because it hasn't been submitted to a testing agency and been certified. Of course, we all know that you can purchase a DOT sticker and put it on the helmet, but that does not mean that it is protective. These helmets, they have a nice hard shell, which certainly could protect you from raindrops, bugs. A helmet testing researcher friend of mine likes to say the helmet of this sort, the hard shell, has the protective capability of protecting your head if you happen to fall asleep on the table, like, and your head hits the table at Thanksgiving. So it's not gonna, it could break apart in an impact. It could be penetrated on impact. It's not designed to disperse a blow. It's just novelty. Also, you can see in the cutaway here, there's the outer shell and it goes straight to the comfort padding. So there's none of that EPS liner in it that's going to absorb the impact if there is an accident. So it's not going to minimize any of the impact. It's not going to provide any cushioning for your head or your brain inside your head. Also, the retention straps are often designed, you know, for fashion. So sometimes they're even just glued in. Sometimes they're not strong enough to keep the helmet in place. Sometimes they're not in the right position to keep the helmet in the right place. So these are all things that you want to be really careful of. If you're considering a half shell helmet, be very careful of these. There was an article that came out about these when there's a kind of a surge in these retro half shell helmets a while back, and the helmet researchers were saying that wearing a helmet like that and expecting it to protect you is like having a fake fire extinguisher when you're on a boat and you have a fire. So it's not going to do what it looks like it might do. So like I said before, novelty headwear doesn't go through any safety testing. It's not certified. It's not even close. So now I'd like to talk about what I'm talking about when I say certified and safety testing. There are numerous different helmet protection standards out there worldwide. Locally, people are most familiar with DOT, which is the U.S. Department of Transportation standard that's required for helmets to be sold on the market and to be worn on the roads. There are also a couple other standards that we're familiar with here in the United States. ECE is a European a global standard. And often we'll find DOT helmets with this as a secondary standard. Also, the Snell Memorial Foundation, that's a private company that does testing and certification. Again, it's usually in conjunction with DOT or one of the other. And then a newer one is the FIM, the International Federation of Motorcycling, basically the world body of motorcycle racing, has come out with their own competition level standard. And for the FIM standard, those helmets already have to have at least one of the other standards in order to qualify for testing for that one. So the FIM standard is designed for the most extreme, highest speeds and the most extreme use of the helmets. So that begs the question, which is the best standard? And much like debates over oil viscosity, there is a lot of debate over which helmet standard is the best. In reality, they're all doing very similar measurements and tests in slightly different ways. And in my opinion, any certified helmet is better than novelty headwear. So let's take a look at what they are looking at. The basics of helmet impact testing is the drop test, a free fall of a helmet at a regulated distance or speed onto a variety of surfaces on various points of the helmet with differently weighted head forms inside of it. And the intent is to mimic potential real-world regular roadway impacts. I want to point out that this chart that I have here it's a little bit outdated because the standards do change and get updated now and then, but I think it shows you what I mean when I say they're basically all doing the same kinds of tests, just in slightly different ways. So you can see on the helmet, there are multiple different points where the helmet is dropped. Again, here's an example. The Schuberth flip-up helmets, they all go under the drop test on the chin bar. It does have the EPS liner in it, and they are tested and rated as full face helmets. And then there's side, top, back, and then on the front are all areas where the helmet is impacted. And then you see these anvils, the flat, curbstone, hemisphere, and edge. And those are all the surfaces that the helmets are dropped onto. Again, if you want to learn more about the testing and the in detail difference between all of the standards, this QR code will take you to a really excellent article about it that is fairly recent. Are there any questions on the helmet testing so far?
Just out of curiosity, because I wear a Neotech, it's tested to a full face as well. It's tested both standards.
Okay, that's good to know. Okay. Okay, so to boil all of that down, a strong shell alone without the EPS underneath isn't enough to prevent serious injury. Like we talked about, the EPS liner reduces the impact of the head on the inside of the helmet, which reduces the impact of the brain slamming against the skull. And so these tests are primarily measuring the effectiveness of the EPS liner to slow down that impact of the head in the inside of the helmet and the brain on the inside of the skull. So the goal of manufacturing is to design helmets with a combination of the shell rigidity or flex and the EPS compound to minimize the peak acceleration, the speed at which the head is most violently pushing into the EPS liner. So one thing to note is that if you are going to have an extremely rigid helmet shell, which is most likely going to be the most resistant to a penetration hit, you're going to need to double that with an extra absorbent inner lining to make up for the rigid shell. If you have a softer shell, you don't need quite as much impact cushioning on the inside. So these are all factors that play into why these tests are done, and they help indicate what the helmet as a whole, how it rates in terms of head protection. So when the tests are done, the drop tests, the actual impact part is measured over a certain amount of time, which is very short. And that's called the dwell time. And that's kind of like the big part under the bell curve. And that has, that plays a part in the overall head injury criterion measurement. But what they're really looking at is the peak acceleration, which is the peak of the curve. And you might have seen on the previous slide that let's see, the DOT has like a higher acceptable level of G-force. And these are old numbers too, so I don't know if these are still accurate, but each manufacturer kind of tries to gear its helmets to a certain level of acceptable G-force on the inside of the helmet. And so here you can see in this test, which is actually from a Schuberth helmet quite a long time ago, the maximum allowable acceleration for the ECE test, which is what they were testing for in this instance, is 275. And in this test, the helmet came in under 200 Gs. So that is a very well performing helmet. It's not getting close to the maximum allowable G-force that the brain and the head are going to sustain. Any questions on this?
I had a question. Obviously, I have my Harley Davidson helmet, but how do I determine through looking at the label what the testing or what the standard that they are used? You know, all I can find is that it says CE, UK, and CA, but doesn't say anything else. And then on the inner, I found that it has a label, product number, date, you know, size, and the same thing, CE doesn't have anything specific. Do they normally label what specificity would be on the helmets, or that
So
depends on
typically
manufacturers?
Typically the standard, the certification sticker is going to be on the lower back outside of the helmet. And if it meets more than one, like it's DOT and ECE, it will indicate both. I do know, yeah. And I do know that with ECE helmets, they usually also have like some sort of a barcode on the inside of the helmet as well. But, yeah.
Those have the
typically it's that sticker on the back that's going to be your indicator.
Yeah, and the back only has the DOT and the FM VSS number 35.
Okay. Yeah, and the FM VSS, that's the DOT standard. So
right.
Yeah.
A lot of that, guys, those standards, they only test to the standard of the country it's manufactured for. Okay. But then and this just goes back to all my car testing stuff as well. It's the same thing. And generally the manufacturers, they look at where they're going to manufacture at, and they will test to the standard, or to where they're going to make their sales at, and they'll test. One way to look at that is you look where the manufacturing company, where they manufacture primarily. For instance, like Schuberth is a German company, and they will hit the European standards and the US standards because those are their markets. Same with Nolan, they're Italy, and so they'll do the same thing, the ECU test as well as the DOTs, and the sticker will be the certification sticker, but they're largely manufactured for the same because they don't make a different helmet for different markets. It just costs too much to do that. Let's see.
Exactly.
Asia, Korea, and Vietnam is where HJC is manufactured. Ari is Japan. So is Shoei's or Japan. So it gives you a little idea. Mostly they they hit all the standards. The big companies will in the same helmet.
Exactly. Okay. So that's the impact testing, and that's the most important part. A a lot of other further tests are conducted that may or may not be related to the certifications, such as penetration. Some of them do test for penetration. Some of them test for rotational force, so that twisting, like the MIPS helmets. Some of the standards incorporate temperature, so like they'll do the drop test at, you know, room temperature, and then they'll go back and they'll do each one at extreme heat and extreme cold to make sure that it's still protecting in either of those extremes. Retention strength, so they'll test the strength of the retention strap to make sure that it will hold. Roll off is something, I believe it's still specific to Schuberth, but they have extra straps they put in the back to keep the helmet from rotating forward, which can cause injury to the chin. So that's another thing that's can be tested for. They do tests with the water, with rain and helmets completely soaked. Also, other tests are peripheral vision, and sometimes you'll see these ratings. And so the FIM test, for example, has this new the ease of cheek pad removal, because in, you know, racing environments, that's really important. So there are a lot of further tests that are done in addition to the drop test. And again, these are all, a lot of this is all summarized and detailed in that article I was telling you about. And I can go back to those codes or tell you how to find the articles later if you'd like. Okay. Then helmet fit is also very, very important in helmet safety, because we're talking about the helmet's primary function is to absorb the impact of your head moving into the inside of the helmet and your brain hitting against the inside of your skull. And so it's important that the helmet fits tightly, because if it's loose, that adds an extra element of the helmet hitting the ground, then that your head impacting the inside of the helmet. And if there's a gap there, that's just going to be a little bit of extra pressure on the brain in that impact. So you want to make sure that the helmet fits very, very snug, as snugly as is comfortable, I like to say. And the best place to start is know your hat size. Get your measurement around the widest circumference of your head and use that as a starting point. But not all helmet manufacturers' sizes are the same. And even from one same brand, different helmets in their lines might fit differently because of shape differences, or if they're using multiple shell sizes. So you always want to try one on. I also like to recommend try on a size bigger and smaller than you think is the right one, and that will really help you hone it. Sometimes you think it's really snug, but you try on the smaller one and you see it fits even more snug and it's still comfortable. I would go with the smaller one. Sometimes it might not be comfortable enough and you try on a bigger one and it's a little bit loose, but you might be able to adjust that fit with a different comfort liner. So it's always a good thing to try on the different sizes and figure out which one's going to be the best, but you want it snug. So while you're trying it on, you want to check, see if you can rotate the helmet sideways on your head, see if it will rotate forward and back, because you really want it to stay in place. When you're moving it around, your cheeks should move with the helmet. It should be that snug. You also want to do a pressure point check, which is you can take your pinky finger and make sure you can get it up a little ways in between your head and the front of the helmet. But you want to make sure that it's not roomy enough that, it should be difficult, but you can get a little bit of your finger in there. I like to say, like a good handshake, it should be as tight as possible without causing pain. Okay, and then for helmet care, helmets always come with an owner's manual, just like most important critical items. And I always recommend reading the owner's manual, because care for the helmet is going to differ based on its construction, and storage and care can be different depending on what materials are used in the helmet. You want to be very, very careful about anything that can cause the shell to delaminate so it won't disperse a blow properly. So be careful about the what you use to clean the exterior. Don't use any petroleum-based cleaning fluids or anything that's really abrasive. And also for the inside, you want to make sure that you're not using those things on the comfort lining because you don't want to use anything that's going to cause a reaction on your skin or your scalp. Also, you want to be very careful when you're cleaning it with any kinds of chemicals that could cause the EPS liner to break down. That's why if we look a little bit further down the list, don't store helmets near gasoline, cleaning fluids, exhaust fumes, or excessive heat. That can all affect the EPS liner. Like if you take a styrofoam cup and you pour, I don't know, some chemical in it and it will break down, that you don't want that to happen to the inside of your helmet. So that's why you want to be really careful about where you store it. I don't store my helmets in the garage because I've got multiple bikes and the car that are weeping out a little bit of gas fumes all the time. And I know that's bad for the helmets. So it's better just to store them inside. I also like to store them open because if it's a flip up helmet, or just keep the face shield open because that helps it breathe. It helps it from getting, mildew buildup inside. If you have a sun visor or a face shield that's treated with anti-fog, if it's all closed up, it can cause the anti-fog to get murky. So it's just best to keep it stored open so it has air. And then also, we all know that horrible sound of a helmet falling off the seat of a bike. And helmets are designed to take the impact of the head on the inside of the helmet in conjunction with the impact on the outside. So if your helmet falls, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's done and you have to get rid of it. But keep in mind, every time a helmet falls or gets banged against the wall, it's diminishing its ability to protect in some way, in some little way. And all of that adds up over time. So try to take as best of care of it as you can. Keep it from falling, keep it from getting whacked into things. Be careful about painting and decorating, anything that can compromise its integrity. Also, avoid sticking things on it like, people are putting ears on it and spikes. You want to be careful about all these things because in the accident, if you're sliding, all of those things can cause the helmet to, abruptly stop. They'll catch on the roadway, and that can cause a neck injury. Typically with helmets, when they've got the external vents and flaps and things like that, those are designed to break off in the event of an incident to avoid having it, cause any abrupt stop. The helmets are designed smooth like they are so that they'll help you slide and prevent a neck injury. And the same goes for if you're using the radio or intercom, you don't want to compromise the shell by drilling. The same with the EPS liner. You don't want to, destroy that at all. So be sure to look into that when you're looking into those. Also, it should be something that is designed so it can break off in the event of an incident. And then you also want to follow the manufacturer's guidelines for how long the helmet lasts. Typically, helmets come with a 5-year warranty, and that's generally a good measure for the life cycle of a helmet. And of course, this depends on how well it's kept, how much it's used, all of those things. If you ever have a question about the helmet's longevity or if it's taken a hit, many times you can reach out to the manufacturer and ask them for guidance of what they recommend. Some helmet companies even offer, they'll inspect it for you. But if it has been in a crash or you see any damage to the outside that looks like a compromise, like a crack or delamination, you're going to probably want to retire that helmet because it's better to know that you have a completely good, completely functioning helmet than to wonder if it's going to be there when you need it. And then one final tip for helmet care I like to offer. I see this all the time when I'm on rides in groups and people get off the bike, they take off their helmet and hang it up on the mirror. And it's very convenient. I get that. But in this case, when it's hung on the mirror in this fashion, every time that happens, the mirror is impacting and compressing the EPS liner on the inside of the helmet. And over time, that's really compromising that protective quality of the EPS liner. So I highly recommend don't hang your helmet on the bike this way. I also hang my helmet on the mirror, but I will either put the retention strap around the mirror or put the mirror through the eye portal so that it's not hitting the EPS liner. And that sums it up. So I'm happy to take any questions that you guys have. And let me go back to that one slide if you are interested in scanning. I think it should work through the computer. If you're interested in pulling up that article about the helmet standards and the differences and all of the tests they do, there's that. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to take them.
I got a couple, but let me do this real scan
Okay.
first real quick. Where's the scan?
And this article, I will say, was actually recommended to me by a friend of mine who is an independent helmet tester. So it's a good article.
Yeah, it scans just fine.
Great.
Yeah. Great presentation. Thank you. And it's actually good timing because as soon as I buy the new motorcycle, I'm buying a new helmet. I scratched up that helmet pretty good. I can tell you that when I went down with that bike.
Yeah.
It wasn't, and we really didn't take much to do it either. But in fact, I have a half helmet that I bought for doing some when I did some motorcycle training with the police force, and that was just useful to be able to hear and see better at the time. But I'm going to go back and look at that DOT. It's probably older than 5 years, so it's time to get rid of it anyway. But my questions though, let's see, where was that at here? Just a second. What do you wear for a helmet mostly?
Well, full disclosure, I worked at Schuberth for about 5 years when the brand re-emerged in the United States around 2010. So I am a diehard Schuberth fan. Almost all of my helmets are Schuberth and have been for a long time. I also have become a flip-up helmet person, and Schuberth helmets are really, really excellent helmets in terms of safety, in terms of comfort, in terms of aesthetics, ventilation, the visibility. They're just great helmets. I recently picked up a helmet by the brand SMK, and it's kind of new in the US market. They're actually manufactured in India. They manufacture about 12 million helmets a year.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I'm kind of interested in this. Their helmets are DOT and ECE certified, and they are at an extremely low price point considering the quality. So that's just a new brand you might not have heard of. I was a Shoei fan for a long time before all of that. For my off-road helmets, I generally steer towards Bell and their 6D with the elastomer rotational force protection. So, yeah.
John has a hand up. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, question. You mentioned 5 years. Is 5 years kind of the guideline for replacing a helmet?
Yes. Yes. Most manufacturers recommend that. And again, it depends on, some helmets I wouldn't hesitate to, get a little bit longer life out of if it's been properly cared for or not used that much, stored properly. But generally 5 years is kind of a maximum because, depending on all the things that affect the helmet's integrity in terms of, how it's stored, how it's cared for, all of those things, if it's been dropped.
Now, what's the issue with Shoei? Because that's a very popular brand.
It is a very popular brand and it's an excellent helmet. Yeah,
Can
they
you,
do.
can you
Go
stop
ahead.
share for, Sarah, so we can see everybody?
Sure.
Yeah.
Let's see.
And John, while she's answering that, Neotech is showy.
Oh,
Yeah.
but was there an issue with Shoei that, I'm unaware of any issue with it.
That's my favorite, actually.
I'm not aware of Shoei specifically. I will say that back in the early 2000s, Snell started touting itself as being the most stringent of the standards. And Shoei, I believe at the time, was DOT and Snell. And what researchers uncovered was that in trying to become the most stringent standard, they were doing like double drops in the same spot and some things like that. And the helmets that were being manufactured to the Snell standard were starting to be so rigid that they weren't as protective in general everyday accidents. And so there was this big article that came out called Blowing the Lid Off that was kind of an expose on all of that. And subsequently, the Snell standard has been revised. Then they broke it off into a very stringent standard and a roadworthy standard. And the roadworthy standard is very much like the ECE standard. And those are both not too far off from the DOT standard. So that might be what you're thinking of, though, is back when Shoei was somewhat known for the Snell standard. And then the Snell standard started to have those issues with its testing methods. So, but no, it's a great brand. Great, awesome helmets.
Okay, thank you.
Shoei and Sherworth, they both rank the highest for sound too. For being quiet compared to the rest. And
Sound
but
producing.
the price at hits right there too. They're the highest on the prices.
Yeah. Don't leave out our friend Arai either. They're up there too.
Yep.
Yeah,
Rise
sure.
made in I forgot where, but overseas as well.
I think it's
Jerry,
Japan also.
What's your
Yeah.
head worth? Hey, what's your head worth?
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
From experience, I will tell you that when you make an insurance claim on your motorcycle insurance, the very first thing they ask you about is your helmet, what brand it is, how much it's cost, and that's the first item on their list that they replace, period, no matter what it looks like, period.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Yep. So you should always have a nice. I mean, I buy the Harley brand, but I have also HJC helmet, which has been pretty good, and I still have an old that I don't wear because I go through the rule of 5 years. But I kept one of my original Harley helmets. Still, it's intact, but 5 years rule. I kept that
Yeah.
rule. I have two helmets, one for summer that is a half helmet, and then my full face helmet that I use in the winter. And once that 6 years come around, I'd buy a new one. So
That's smart.
What was
giving
the
us-
Indian manufacturer again that you mentioned?
SMK.
SMK. I'm a little better.
SMK? Okay.
And they have everything: street, dirt, sport, modular. So
And according to
Okay.
Sarah's Facebook, they come in pink.
exactly. If that's your jam.
Oh yeah.
Rory?
Thank you, David.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Good to see you, David.
Take care.
Rory
Dave.
has a question.
No, I was just gonna make a statement. I had a bunch of helmets left over from different periods of time. I ended up giving the fire department to play with, to cut up if they wanted to see how they worked and use on their dummies to try and get them off or set up scenarios with motorcycle accidents.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a couple of them here getting ready to take over to township fire department here as well for that.
I think that's who got most of my last ones.
That's a
Has
great
anybody-
idea. I've heard about, yeah.
Has anybody
Hey,
ever had
Mike?
their helmet x-rayed to see if it has any flaws in it? And if so, where did you do it?
I have not done that, but I have heard that I think Bell might offer that service. Either
Well,
Bell or Shoei.
one of my friends got on an airplane and had put his helmet through the X-ray. He said the guy stopped him and said, "Come here, I need to show you something." He took him back, showed him the X-ray, put his helmet back in there. It was nothing but spider webs, cracks from time.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
That's
he
scary.
went and bought a new helmet.
That can
Yeah,
happen just dropping off your handlebars.
Yeah.
The
Mhm.
main issue is the outer shell, and that stuff will micro crack. You know, same thing on, you know, when I bought that yellow motorcycle I bought that crashed, and the guy mentioned that he rebent the forks to he was used to doing car stuff. He says it got a nice straight, don't worry about it. First thing I replaced those forks, because aluminum micro cracks like you wouldn't believe. And so
Ugh.
same thing with the fibers, carbon fibers and the fiberglasses and stuff. The dropping, that's the micro cracks, and so you're compromising the outer area. And sometimes
Yeah.
if you look really close, you can see those on the surfaces.
You had
Wow.
a yellow motorcycle?
What's that?
You had a yellow motorcycle?
John. You know, that's one that all the girls looked at, John, not yours.
Oh, they love that. They love that turquoise. You're just
Anyway.
jealous.
So Sarah,
sharing
what
all
kind
of
of
our
bike do
secrets,
you
John.
ride?
Me?
I missed
So I have a BMW S1000R, so like a naked sport bike, a Honda
Nice.
Transalp, and a KTM 350 EXC.
A Honda Transalp 750?
Yeah,
Nice.
it's really nice.
Yeah.
I think Sarah works in the industry so she can have all that stuff at a lower cost than the rest of us. And then on top of that, she gets to test ride many things.
Definitely a perk.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, hey Jerry, this is Tom.
Go ahead.
I've got a couple of quick comments and a couple of thoughts. I have two half helmets. One I've had for buku decades and I still wear it. And then I have a newer half helmet, and it's the one that's got, you know, push buttons up above the ear, and it's got an intercom and so forth and so on. And I like the helmet, but I've never really trusted myself to learn to use all those push buttons and features, you know, consistently and properly. So I don't wear that helmet because I don't like to be distracted. And I like the half helmet because I can hear what's behind me and beside me. And anyway, I may find that I will need to upgrade a helmet. So any recommendations on simplicity for intercoms or CBs or whatever if you're trying to communicate in a group?
I would say, and I'm not a communications expert, but one tip I would give you is whatever you end up with, practice on it at home when you're not on the bike and get used to using it. So you're not learning it on the bike. That will help. So it's just natural. And then also there are different ones like the Senna and the Cardo systems are the most common, and those you can pair very easily with other people and multiple groups and things like that. So those are a couple of recommendations. And then I didn't even know you could get those in a half helmet, but
Yeah, I have
yeah.
the Senna in a half helmet, and it has so many different features, you know, with volume and on, off, and communication and range, and it drives me crazy because if I don't have on gloves, you know, I can reach up there and I can feel gently around and I kind of know which button I'm pushing. But then if I push it the wrong way or hold it for more than 2 seconds, or, you know, I only need half a second, it's just, to me, it's infuriating because It's too easy to make a mistake. And when you're on a motorcycle, you don't want mistakes.
Yeah. Another tip is you can get a communicator that will Bluetooth to your phone or your motorcycle, and then you can have the controls on your phone or on the bike. And so you're not trying to figure it out here. You can actually see it a little better. Emilio, do you have experience with that?
I do. I have the helmet that I have is called an Outrush R, and I have the Sena intercom, and I have it voice activated, so I can tell through the helmet to answer the call or to answer the text, and then I don't have to touch anything, especially with the gloves, because I have the same problem with Tom, you know, with the helmet and all of that. So. And it's very easy and simple to set up. Just gotta download the app. And I have an Android, by the way. I have no idea how to work an iPhone, but anything I can do with this Android will do it through voice activated once you sync it up. And with my motorcycle, the Pan America has also Bluetooth, so you can see it when the call is coming in or the text. You can even read it if you want to, but I don't. I just tell them not to reject the call. Announces the call and tells you everything. So no.
Going back to my car testing days and all the stuff I deal with the courtroom. I'm an accident reconstructionist, Sarah, as an engineer, and so going back to those days, I can tell you that, you know, we got all these laws about, you know, hands-free use of your phone and all that stuff. I'll tell you, you get a phone call, pull over. Don't do it on a motorcycle.
Yeah.
It's a dumb thing to do.
No.
Distraction is distraction is distraction, whether you're touching the buttons or not. That is a big distraction.
I don't even use my radio on the motorcycle.
100%.
I refuse to use a radio on the motorcycle because my temptation is change the volume, change the stations, reach down, push a button, you know, change the band, go from Sirius to FM. And I won't do it. I won't be distracted.
And regardless of your communication system, you still should know hand signals.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So
my main annoyance with the Senate is when I'm talking to my wife and it says something like, say a command, because I said something that sounded like Cena. And it was like, say a command. So I have to tell it to shut up.
You were talking about how easily they paired, you know, the Senna paired. My wife has a Senna that's just you know, the standalone type. I have the Schuberth with the built-in Senna. And we really have trouble getting those to pair. Do you have any thoughts or suggestions regarding that? I mean, it's almost to the point where we've almost quit using them because they just will not pair easily, even though they're both Sennas.
Sarah said she
personally, I would call Senna and ask them to help me. But
they haven't been very helpful. But
that's too bad.
Yeah. You know, we could use a speaker on that.
Oh, it's wonderful user-friendly
stuff. Utility on that.
We could probably use a speaker.
Utility on there.
We could probably use a speaker on just communications, I suppose.
Definitely.
We'll figure that one out next. We're also out of time here. Anybody got any hard questions on helmets offhand?
Many thanks for the presentation.
You're welcome.
I got to tell you, thank you so much for the presentation, Sarah.
Good. I hope it was helpful. I hope you learned a lot.
Yeah. Reaching out. It was good to see David earlier. It's great to see Jeff online here with us tonight. And like always, all of you as well. Let's close with the 5-way test. And, you know, Emilio, you want to do the 5-way test for us tonight?
Oh my gosh, of course I will do. So, do we have our bell?
I don't have the electronic bell tonight, so go ahead. Do us the 5-way test.
Ding.
For the things we say and do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerns? Will it be goodwill and better friendship? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Number
That'd
5,
be
will it
fun.
be fun?
Fun.
I betcha.
Absolutely.
And then will anybody find out
Thank you so
afterwards?
much.
Jeff, you turned off your sound. Did you have something you wanted to say?
No, just hello.
All right.
The boss is in Florida, so I was home by. I happened to see an email, so I thought, well, I'll jump on the call. So glad I did. So
I'm glad you did too. It's good to see you.
Good seeing you.
Fantastic.
All
Sarah, you
right.
talked all
Good
over
to
the
see you
country
all.
tonight. We'll catch up again here shortly. Thank you again so much for the presentation, and
Sounds
always
good.
good to
Thanks
see
for
you.
having me.
Thank you.
You
All right.
too. Bye-bye.
Take care, everybody.
Good night, everybody. See you later, dude.
Video here, or maybe it stopped. Okay. Stop recording.